In the late summer of 1993, a strange event occurred that involved what I believe to be an experience with lost time and teleportation to another location. I had spent the day in the Uinta Mountains, up in our usual family stomping grounds. I had left the Christmas Meadows area above Mirror Lake around 7 p.m., and although it was getting darker, the summertime sun still afforded enough daylight to make it down through Kamas to Park City and then to Parley's Canyon and home before it became completely dark. I had plans to stop in Park City at the Mount Air Cafe for dinner. About 5 miles from Park City, having passed Kamas and Heber long before, a dark storm gathered above me and began to pour down rain, accompanied with intense thunder and lightning. These kinds of storms were not uncommon to the Wasatch Mountain region during the summertime, but this storm came sudden and was seemingly much darker. The storm was so intense and thick that I may as well have been driving at night. The lightning streaked all around me, but as there wasn't a safe place to pull over at the time, I just crept along the road at a slow pace. I turned on my headlight high beams and fog lights to warn other vehicles of my presence. The storm raged for about 20 minutes, then began to subside. Heavy clouds still clung low to the ground like fog, but the lightning and thunder had ceased. I could see a bit farther around and began to notice that something was not right. I had left the pine forest long before, but to both sides of the vehicle were pine trees. Moreover, I should have reached Park City by then. The storm clouds still made the landscape dark as night. At last I saw the lights of the town and felt a sigh of relief because I was starving. As I approached the town, I started to feel uncomfortable again because nothing seemed to look right. I knew Park City well, having lived there and often visited through my life. I had also made the run between Christmas Meadows in the Uinta Mountains and Park City hundreds of times. It was a strange sensation. As I pulled into the town and tried to orient myself, things began to look familiar, and that is where I became very spooked. I suddenly realized where I was at. I was back in Kamas, coming into it from Mirror Lake as I had already done prior. I was totally confused. How was it possible to be only minutes from Park City then suddenly be back in Kamas coming from the same direction of Mirror Lake? It was impossible. Needing to clear my head, and still starving, I decided to pull into a little cafe in town to eat and think about what had happened. So I parked and went inside. There were several groups of people sitting around at the tables. From the minute I walked in, I felt something strange about it all. Normally people in Kamas were friendly and cheerful, nodding politely to travelers stopping in for a bite to eat. I had been to this cafe many times, but on this occasion no one was smiling, and they were all staring at me as if they were looking at a ghost. I was unnerved by the whole event, and even though I was hungry, and the smell of the food was great, I decided to just buy a Coke and leave. While I waited for my drink, I noticed that no one was smiling, or even talking. As I casually looked around the tables, I couldn't help but notice that I was being stared at, and not discreetly. I felt as if I were standing there naked. What about my appearance had so concerned the patrons? I left the cafe and drove once again out of Kamas, this time bypassing Park City and driving straight to Parley's Canyon and home. Driving over Parley's summit, I glanced at my watch. I was shocked to see that it was 12:39 a.m. There was no way I had been traveling for over 5 hours. What in hell had just happened, I wondered. What the hell was going on? The event of that day will likely never be adequately explained. The lost time, teleportation to another location, the strange way the normally friendly people in the cafe had acted. But I'm convinced that the intense electrical storm had something to do with it. Perhaps opening a portal in space and time that I somehow went through. Such events have been commonly reported through history. Personally, I love storms. But to this day I've used such storms with caution, and every so often I check my watch to look for anomalies in time. If you've had experience with lost time and dislocation like this, let me know in the comments below.